All right, welcome into Bay Area Sports Insiders. Glad to have you here for our in-studio premiere. I'm Courtney Cronin of the Mercury News. This joint venture between the Mercury News and East Bay Times kicking off this week. We figured what better time to bring you our first episode than Draft Week. The war rooms have been prepped across the country, and on Thursday, teams will find out their future with their first round picks. The San Francisco 49ers coming in at number 2. Or are they? Joining me now, Bay Area News Group 49ers beat writer Cam Inman. The talk for the last few months, Cam, has been whether the 49ers are going to keep that pick at number 2 or shop it around. They've been doing that for quite some time. General Manager John Lynch meeting with the media saying he either wants to find a cornerstone at number 2 for the franchise or push that pick somewhere else and go a little bit further into the draft. For a while, we've heard the name Solomon Thomas, a defensive end from Stanford, thrown around. But what the 49ers do at number 2 depends upon a lot of what the team ahead of them does. The Cleveland Browns drafting at number 1 for the second straight year. How does what they do affect if the 49ers are going to potentially take Myles Garrett if he's still available?
Well, I think everybody's going under the assumption that Myles Garrett's going to go number 1 overall. So there's not a clear consensus number 2. And so, yes, there's talk about possibly Solomon Thomas from Stanford. But John Lynch has been shopping this pick for months. He just wants to get a lot more extra picks is what the 49ers need to replete their roster. I mean, last night I was following up a rumor that I had heard that they were going to trade the pick to the Browns for the Browns' 12th spot. It wasn't true, but you're going to hear a lot of that all the way up until draft night, I believe, because the 49ers are active. They want to get more picks than they can. I don't think that they've settled on one guy in particular. They have a couple avenues they can go with number 2, Myles Garrett. They would take him if the Browns decide to pass on him for a quarterback. But the 49ers obviously need a lot to recover from a 2-14 season.
And what they need is a quarterback to build upon for the future. The question, is it wise to pick a quarterback at number 2 given the value of some of the quarterbacks in this draft? We hear the name Mitchell Trubisky from North Carolina, Deshaun Watson also being thrown into that mix from Clemson. Is there a chance that we see them using their pick on a signal caller instead of what most would consider the best player available?
I think that's absolutely a consideration. These guys are not highly thought of around the league necessarily because Trubisky's only had 13 starts. Deshaun Watson. A lot of these guys are coming out of spread offenses, and they're going to be going into a very complex offense under Kyle Shanahan. How are they going to be able to translate to that? The number 2 pick traditionally goes to quarterbacks, guys that sack quarterbacks and guys that protect quarterbacks. Another option the 49ers might want to consider is a running back because Carlos Hyde is not under contract for next season. And he's been injury prone, so maybe they go after Leonard Fournette. I would love to see what they would do if they would shake the whole draft up if they went with Christian McCaffrey number 2 overall, because most people are like, well, he might be a first-round talent. Maybe he's a top 10 talent. Is he a top 2 talent? I don't know, but Kyle Shanahan would certainly know how to use him.
That would certainly be the bombshell of the draft in that early round if they went with a Christian McCaffrey, whose draft stock has been rising considerably within the last few weeks. How does he compare to a guy like Leonard Fournette? Obviously, you have the versatility there with McCaffrey. They could use him as a receiver or as a running back to give Carlos Hyde some support this coming season. But Leonard Fournette, arguably the best running back in the entire draft. Andy recently visited with the 49ers.
And Fournette is a power back. This guy, he was on everybody's radars the last couple of years. Everybody became aware of what he was doing at LSU. McCaffrey is... He was so dominant at Stanford because he's so quick and he can be used as a receiver, which is something that Kyle Shanahan likes to use with his running backs. He can also do special teams and be a punt returner. And obviously John Lynch knows him quite well from his father, Ed McCaffrey, too. So Stanford guy as well. So there's that connection. I think that's pipe dream, though. But I do like the idea that the 49ers would go with an offensive skill position player rather than a defensive lineman for a 3rd straight year.
So something that could potentially shake the draft up even more than going with Christian McCaffrey there at number 2, taking a look at the 49ers' hole in the defensive backfield. Now, they've drafted a lot of cornerbacks in the last few years, not this regime, the former regime. 11 cornerbacks in 7 years for Trent Baalke. And there's been some recent news, Tremaine Brock being released for the allegations of domestic violence earlier in April. Jimmy Ward potentially the move to safety this coming season. How do they approach this, knowing the pieces that they had at cornerback last year? Rashard Robinson, clearly a front runner to potentially earn that starting spot.
Right. But
there's also some holes. Keith Reeser, we don't know about Will Redmond because we didn't see him play last year. How do they approach that?
I think you do need a new starting cornerback, obviously, because Brock's gone. So do you say, do we need the starting quarterback more than we need a new single high safety? Because that's the other spot in the secondary that they have to look to fill under this new defensive scheme where you leave one safety back deep, and that's what they're going to try to convert Jimmy Ward to. And Jimmy Ward he has experience playing safety in college and high school. He's been playing cornerback the last couple of years. The 49ers want to shift him out into safety. But do they look at Malik Hooker from Ohio State or Jamal Adams from LSU? Again, DBs don't usually go 1-2 in the draft, and there's never been a cornerback that's gone number 3. There's only been one DB that's gone number 2, and that was Eric Turner years and years ago. So I don't know if the 49ers would be willing to make that kind of a historical leap when there's other positions of need.